I guess there were three main reasons as to why we decided to launch ultimately seven feeder funds in the UAE. Firstly, it was the changing regulatory environment. Secondly, it was our commitment to the region. And thirdly, it was our clients. And so if I take those in order, in terms of the regulatory environment, there was a piece of regulation that was issued out of the UAE, which really would have prevented the continuing sale of our UCITS funds into the retail channels in the UAE. And that would have meant that any investors that were below sort of 500,000 dirhams or 130,000 US dollars would no longer be able to access those offshore funds. So we had to decide how we were going to continue, how we were going to interpret that piece of regulation, how we would continue to service those clients and our distribution partners. I think the first thing we needed to do was interpret those rules. What did they mean? We also needed to just ensure that, we engaged early with the regulators to really understand the implications of those rules and really how we were going to navigate that challenge. So that was really the first piece, is really around how to really interpret that regulatory change, and obviously being able to ensure that we understood the deadlines and the details of those regulations. The second piece is really, and what I would say is Franklin Templeton's commitment to the region. So having already a very well-established business in the UAE, a belief that we wanted to continue to do that and grow in that region. And we've been present in that region for many, many years, both in the retail and institutional spaces. So it was really a decision to be made around, do we want to continue to grow? Do we see that growth continue, given our commitment in that region and to the clients in that region? And the simple answer was yes. We wanted to make sure that we were there to service those clients. And I think the third reason is really around our clients. So we deal with many distribution partners, either global banks or local banks, wealth managers, and other fund buyers in the region. And so a big part of our conversation was actually partnering with them to think about how we were collectively going to solve for that gap in the retail space. And having had many discussions, we were all in the same predicament. We had assets to preserve and wanted to grow. Those clients wanted to continue to service those retail clients. And so, we made a commitment alongside many of our key clients to be able to continue to service them by looking to find a solution for what was inevitably a challenge for the whole industry. But one that we, given those three things, we were able to really think about how we can deliver for them. So as we looked at how we were going to provide a solution for the UA marketplace as a result of those regulatory changes, the first thing we needed to do was to really understand the decision about whether we were going to build a set of local funds to try and meet those regulatory obligations, or whether we were going to use a third party to be able to help us facilitate launching funds in that region. And so that decision about whether we in-house or we use a third party was really the first key decision that we needed to make. Given, as I've already previously mentioned, our commitment to the region, we already had a very large presence on the ground in the UAE, meant that actually in the long run, we would have, we felt it was better to launch our own set of funds. And as a result of that, the third parties on TA, fund admin, custody, etc., would be appointed by ourselves as opposed to using a third party. So having made that decision, we decided, given the fact that we have a large expertise across Franklin Templeton in launching funds all over the world, all the way from Japan, Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, etc., and of course in Europe and the US, we're very familiar and have the expertise to be able to lend that support to a region that was looking to find a solution in this space. So being able to utilize our operational resources internally, our management company resources that we already exist within our business, as well as our legal and compliance colleagues within the region, we were able to shortlist a number of service providers that can help us. I think the first step we always take when we're looking at this is, who are our existing service providers that we use globally? Do they have the right licenses? Do they have the right expertise to be able to support what we want to do in that particular region? And I think it became very clear and apparent that actually the business, that part of the business in the UAE was still quite nascent. There were less providers or fewer providers available. And certainly, whilst we spoke to a number of different service providers, Standard Chartered, particularly, were very proactive in their discussions with us. I think we all felt that we needed somebody that was going to be able to partner with us because things were ultimately going to be different to how things had been operated previously in the UAE. By setting up feeder funds, you needed to have the ability to be able to feed into existing funds as well as set up new funds. And also the TA function would be particularly different to what existing service providers were used to dealing with in that marketplace. So having explored all those options, we centered down and decided that we would partner with Standard Chartered. And that partnership was felt to be one that, we needed to work together to try and find a solution. We knew there were going to be things that we needed to work on with our experts and with their experts globally to try and figure out how we would come to a solution on that one. So that's really a big part of it. I mean, clearly fees are going to be a big part of the service providers we choose because we're simply taking an existing structure and now we're adding on essentially an additional layer of fees by having to build feeder funds in the market. So that's a bit of a leap of faith for both Standard Chartered and ourselves to be able to commit to a longer term relationship and be able to make sure that ultimately clients were not going to be penalized because of the regulations. Another additional requirement that we needed to see was how we were going to manage the challenges for our clients. Our clients who are traditionally very used to buying directly from ourselves and other asset managers directly from their UCITS umbrellas had meant that we needed to put in a structure in between that, which required us and our clients to understand that there were going to be changes in the way those prices were going to get delivered to them. But also some of the natural delays you're going to have in the release of NAV prices and so on and so forth. So I think one of the way we really overcame that challenge was really sitting down with Standard Chartered and their experts, with our experts on the ground in the UAE to ensure we really fully understood the operational differences that clients were going to receive as a result of having feeder funds rather than buying directly. That workshop was done quite early on in the process to ensure that we were really clear with our clients some of the differences and challenges that they were going to face and what they were traditionally used to dealing with.
So Standard Chartered run global infrastructure. We are already offering fund administration and custody services in 20 plus, 40 plus country, and for fund services, about 20 plus location, including in the Middle East region. So therefore, on a basis, functionalities, products, services are already there. But having said that, you have noted on Jaspal commentaries on the markets and his expectation. So the short answer to that is yes, we certainly did make some changes. Changes are actually in two categories. One is driven by clients. There are actually items that we will actually need to do on our end, mainly incremental changes that we have to cover to interlock and interface ourselves to Franklin Templeton's operational requirements. So there's some reportings there and interfaces that we need to develop in that space to tighten the interlock between Franklin Templeton and Standard Chartered Bank. There's also another category of change that we actually brought into the market, which I would term it a little bit more transformational rather than the incremental. So this is actually a decision taken by Standard Chartered. So as you heard from Jaspal, transfer agency is also part of the service offering. And we made the decision to introduce a distributed ledger technology solution versus implementing the legacy solutions in the UAE. We have branded the solutions as SC Vita. And in essence, we have been doing quite some development works and proof of concept for the last 24 months before we actually went live in the Middle East itself. And we thought that it's very opportune and very apt to actually do this in the UAE because essentially with the rule and regulation change by the Emirates Securities and Commodity Authority, we are essentially starting from a clean piece of canvas. So bring in new technology to address operational processes, service offering that it tends to be a lot more cumbersome and manual than usual. It's actually the right thing to do. So we actually brought in the distributed ledger technology for transfer agency as we in first quarter of last year and has gone live. And that actually allowed us to offer a much more enhanced, robust suites of offering as compared to what we have done in other locations. And in essence, that also brings down costs, allows me to actually return part of it to Franklin Templeton too, creating a win-win proposition.
First and foremost, it might be worth reiterating that the regulatory changes introduced in the UAE mutual funds market in 2024 were actually amongst the more significant in almost a decade, introducing developments that afforded investors and investment managers guidelines to ensure that the UAE asset management ecosystem continued along its impressive record of growth in a sustainable and equitable manner for all participants. So these changes also resulted in a number of evolutions in the market, not least in the fund structures and operating models adopted by service providers to cater to the market. So these evolutions, I guess, could be summarized across three key areas. Number one, a select number of investment managers who identified the commercial, regulatory, and technical considerations early on also already had the necessary local infrastructure to further expand in the new regulatory landscape. They really led the field by being the first to launch their own feeder fund ranges. And Franklin Templeton was the first global investment manager to launch a protected cell company structure in the DIFC that was subsequently passported in onshore UAE. Number two, the rapid developments in the local fund market presented opportunities for providers such as SCB, and SCB in particular, given its local licenses, position, and experience, was able to progress and evolve as a one-stop shop to the funds industry, combining expertise in transfer agency, fund administration, and custody to streamline the operating model required to optimally service local fund ranges. I think the third observation I'd like to bring out is the fact that these broader changes in the market can actually be seen to have resulted in the development of partnership models between service providers, regulators, and asset managers, all collaborating to effect optimal outcomes. And about these outcomes, the most discernible ones that I'd like to discuss further are an evolving range of investment products for UA investors, obviously within the new environment, a sophistication of fund structures, and an evolution of the local service provision, both focusing on offering optimal solutions for investors. And lastly, the outcomes have resulted in a more rigorous investment ecosystem that offers investors greater protections that could be developed further, but in a sustainable manner.
Managing a new and evolving fund environment is definitely more exciting and yet more challenging than the matured fund markets. The later you have the establishment of market practices and nuances, and realigning or revamping legacy flow are not as easy and as straightforward. In a new and evolving environment like the UAE, you can almost start with a new canvas and wire the ecosystem for the fund industry of the tomorrow that Jean-Marc has just mentioned. So for product developments and expansion plan, we are looking at three areas. Number one, enhancing the automation and the tightening of handshakes with clients and industry counterparts. Number two, inclusion of new products and services as the markets matured. And number three, digital assets, enhancing automation and tightening of handshakes. We have improved the client ecosystem by bringing in automations and functionalities. As an example, we mentioned we have launched SC Vital in Q1 2024, and since then, we've also further automated the connectivity with clients and industry counterparts. We now have full automation via Swift. We have full integrations with trading venues via API. We also enable internet portals for distributors and fund managers, and a whole suite of reconciliations and payment processes, which tends to be a lot more manual in other countries, are actually fully automated in the UAE now. On inclusion of new services and products, we don't stop short of what we have already launched in UAE, noting the ambitions of UAE to be a funds hubs in the future. On that, we have actually attached further services, for example, trailer fee calculations, AML automations, and onboarding. We have also be introducing a new data layer in the next quarter itself that will integrate funds, custody, cash, and FX information all into one. Integrating all these four components, which is the basic components for asset servicing, will allow us to better service our clients, like for example, the needs of Franklin Templeton, tighten a handshake so that they can actually have more quality information, more robust information for them to create value adds to their end clients. On 3, digital assets. That's an interesting topic, and that is also the topics that everyone talks about today. UAE is the first country that we have gone live with digital assets custody for crypto, and we don't stop there. For the funds world, crypto is a new asset class and is also a new services, including a future new settlement currency. UAE approach to the digital asset space is very dynamic and very conducive, reflecting its ambition to be one of the leading hubs for digital assets. So rating ourselves in this space in the UAE is key for the fund industry of the tomorrow that JM has just spoken. On partnership, that's an interesting one. Not in every space we want to do a self-build. Some of the product development area that I've just talked about are actually partnerships. For example, for transfer agency, SC Vital, we partner with Funds DLT to launch the products in the UAE, and UAE is the first market, and since then we've launched to a further 6 markets. And then on the digital assets for crypto, we partner with our venture entity, Zodia Custody, to actually launch this service in the UAE. And obviously, there's some parts that we self-built, for example, the data layer that we actually spoke about. At the end of it, our accountability to client as a partner is to deliver services with accuracy, with timeliness, and to adhere to regulations, wrapped with top-notch client experience. We want to innovate to enable our clients to innovate, to bring value to their end clients, and create a win-win proposition.
So in terms of further developments, collaboration, we would say that we expect the regulatory environment to continue to evolve. The evolving asset management framework within the UAE and in the region will ultimately provide opportunities for asset managers to be able to continue to grow. Certainly, with the launch of the DIFC feeder funds, we will continue to expect further funds to be launched, either as direct funds or as feeder funds. So we'll continue to expand that range over time, both as investors can invest and looking for additional and alternative solutions that we can provide across our investment capabilities. So we'll continue to see that expand. I think there are other areas alluded to by Jean-Marc and Ying. Certainly we expect other regulatory regimes to be promoted within that ecosystem, whether that's onshore within the UAE. Also, I think across the other Gulf states as well, there could be further opportunities both to distribute, but also to build. So I think that's going to be something that we will continue to work with our service providers in partnership around what they are seeing and what we are seeing and what we're hearing from clients. So we'll continue that collaboration. I think in terms of the role that technology can play, and Ying described this quite well, I think as a market, the UAE would like to be a leader in the digital asset space. And I think that's going to be something that's going to continue to be interesting to a place like Franklin Templeton, where we already, globally are seen as, one of the leaders in the digital asset space, whether that the use of blockchain to replace, existing infrastructure and systems, the way record keeping happens on traditional asset management products. So we'll continue to explore where we can extend and roll out the use of that technology. We feel that that's something that's going to grow over time. So we're going to need to continue to partner with our service providers to do that. And then as described, the crypto market and the crypto assets and digital assets in particular, we see as a growing part of the wealth ecosystem. So again, we welcome the developments in the UAE to provide a greater level of services and products, not only around the assets that investors can buy, but the infrastructure and technology by which that is delivered to clients as well. So those are things that we will continue to work closely with and partner with our service providers in the region.
There are definitely ample opportunities to actually collaborate in the fund space with our clients. We innovate to enable our clients to innovate. We support the plans of our clients. And one of the ways to do that is to co-create solutions, co-create products, and technology is often the backbones, right? So our goal is definitely to bring solutions that is cost effective, that is operation efficient, to the markets itself. And the only way to do that is to innovate and to bring latest technology, including distributed ledger solutions, blockchain solutions to the ecosystem itself. So where do I see how we'll be progressing? Aside from the traditional funds world itself, the next to talk about is definitely in the digital asset space. There are several initiatives that we are doing in the space, including with Franklin Templeton. We definitely look forward to share that in due course.